Hi there. A video about the giant explosion that took place in Halifax, Nova Scotia in 1917 came out just as Beirut exploded. Oh my God. We had said there was a silver lining from Halifax, so let's hope that will be true again. Since both of these were accidents, our lesson might be don't play with matches. But let's expand that. For you don't know where the spark will lead. And that's true. This video has one of the largest man-made non-atomic explosions in history. It happened just 6 months before Halifax, which was 3 times larger. But, and there's always a but, we're not going to talk about the silver lining from what happened underneath Messines Ridge. No, we are going to talk about what a nasty surprise World War I was, and maybe a lot of other wars. Remember, you don't know where a spark is going to lead. Britain's Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, believed the First World War was the 7 Years' War when England fought France. It lasted from 1756 to 63. So I'm confused. They also battled during the American Revolution, 1776, and later at Waterloo, 1812. So how the heck did they wind up as allies in 1914? But they were. In any case, in the early 1900s, it was clear another European war was coming, and people were excited of the prospect of fighting. Then they were shocked at how terrible it was, and finally devastated over its result. The war to end all wars had become only the smaller first half of a 30-year war with a pause in the middle. By the way, the combination of the First and Second World Wars isn't called the 30-Year War. That name's reserved for the conflict between Catholic and Protestant in the years 1618 through 48. Over 8 million people died. It was one of the bloodiest conflicts in human history. 8 million. And you've hardly ever heard of it, have you? Another, by the way, wars lasting decades are actually quite common. There was even a 100-year war, lasted 116 years, 1337, 1453. It's old history, right? Or what about communism versus capitalism? That conflict has gone on for 103 years, and we really hope that the Cold War stays cold. Let's get back to 1914. A gunshot killed the Austrian Archduke, and the new Great War exploded within a month. Germany's von Schlieffen plan was to race through Belgium, knock France out, and then turn to Russia. But, and here's another but, the French and the English blocked Germany's opening right hook. So the armies dug hundreds of miles of trenches and hid behind them. 3 years later, Germany was still fighting on 2 sides, with the Western Front a bloody stalemate. Millions of soldiers faced each other across no man's land. Both sides kept trying to break out. Generals sent men against machine guns, cannons, flamethrowers, and poison gas. War moved to the sky, airplanes. The Germans even sent high-flying blimps to drop bombs on London. The trenches almost literally started at the ocean in Belgium, the end of the line. There were 5 battles of Ypres, called Wipers by the English. They are remembered by Dr. McCrae's haunting poem. in Flanders fields. The poppies blow. Between the crosses, row on row. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, and now we lie in Flanders fields. I can't imagine. The British were stymied by the Germans sitting up on a ridge of hills. Hills. One was a pile of dirt railroad builders had left behind. Hill 60 was 60 feet above sea level, a bump. And yet, from its top, artillery observers looked straight at the British lines. 2 years of underground war began. The English dug deep tunnels towards the Messines Ridge. The Germans countermined. Miners on both sides died, crushed, trapped in the darkness. Eventually, 19 chambers were loaded with about 1 million pounds of TNT right under the German lines. On June 7th, 1917, it exploded. It was planned. Something like 10,000 German soldiers were ripped apart and buried. The attack that followed was a success. It managed to push the Germans off the ridge back to their next defensive line. They went back a whole one line. A big success. All of this was done to support the coming Third Battle of Ypres. They didn't expect it to rain and didn't call it off. Passchendaele was a horror. 3 months nightmare. Men drowned in mud. There were between 400,000 and 800,000 casualties. The trenches moved maybe 2 miles. 2. Hard to know how many died in Belgium, though it might be better to say were slaughtered there. There were between 1.5 and 2 million casualties there in 4 years. Alas, by the way, the Western Front of World War I had bigger battles like the Somme, Verdun. It also had places that I'd never even heard of, like northern Italy's River Isonzo. There were 12 battles there. All told, there were over 1 million casualties, and I'd never even heard of the place. But, and here's the last but, the Eastern Front was where there was an explosion that still felt today. The Germans lit the fuse to get the Russians out of the war. Our next video is going to be about what happened then. And maybe we'll talk about another fuse, another one, lit by a German corporal on the Western Front that started the second half, which is sometimes called World War II. Alas, by the way, all of the 19 mines under the Messines Ridge didn't blow up in World War I. They were still there, underground. Where else would they be? When the Germans were trying to get to Dunkirk at the start of World War II, and the British used the 13-foot-high remains of Hill 60 to stop them. They keep fighting over the same ground. I am Mike for the Be More Better team. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. Please comment, like, follow, all the rest. Subscribe if you haven't, but always be more better. Body, mind, and spirit. And then be even more better when you think about what you're starting, where it might go. And when you help others consider the consequences of their actions. And now a shout out to Joe, Anna, and Reverend Elliot. They helped a lot. But all the mistakes are mine. I claim them for myself. This has been a pleasure, though the subject has been painful. Tell us what you think. Thank you. Bye now. Thank you.